Hey guys, Cardi here. This is the end result you're going to get after following along with this tutorial.
All right, now when we did our value practice yesterday, we did a couple of different techniques to create values. One of them was using pressure, right? How did we get a darker value? Pushing harder, and a lighter value by not pushing so hard. Please don't work ahead. There was another technique that we used to create values. Do you remember what it was? Layering, yeah. So pressure or layering. And we're going to do both of those things today, starting with colored pencils in this corner of our apple. It's really important, and I know that it's not super convenient that it's on the screen, but it's really important that you are looking back and forth from your paper to your reference image as you are drawing so that you're trying to be as accurate as possible. We've talked before about how accurate, realistic artwork is not the only good thing out there, but it's a skill that we're trying to develop, okay? So, I'm going to start off with a red colored pencil, and when I'm using my colored pencil, I want to think about the direction of my marks. So I'm going to start by using just one red color with various pressure to try and get sort of an outline of what I'm going to do here. I'm going to start by very lightly mapping out, just like we mapped in our other drawing, where this highlight is, because I'm not going to want to push as hard there, right? So I'm looking at my picture, and with my red colored pencil, I'm just really lightly outlining the shape of that. And I'm using the kind of quarter marks of my paper as reference for where that's going to go. I'm going to have to draw darker so you can see. So you can do this lighter than I'm doing mine. And then there's kind of like another highlight up here. And through this section of the apple. So I've just outlined those so that I'm not going to go too dark in those areas, and then I can't really come back from that. Now with the same colored pencil, I'm going to use it kind of tilted on its side so I can fill in more quickly. And I'm going to look at where my apple is like light, medium, or dark values and use pressure to create that. So the apple is a little bit darker around the outside edge. So I'm going to use my colored pencil to kind of fill that in with a darker red. I'm keeping my marks kind of curved with the direction of that apple, like the contour of it. That's the art word for like the outside shape of it. So since an apple is curved, I want my marks to be kind of curved as well. And that's going to help to make it look more realistic. I'm going to go more for a medium value as I get farther away from the edge of that apple. And I'm not worried about being like super neat right now because we're going to do lots of layering and stuff. But I am trying to just get kind of like a base color. And then there's a little bit of darkness kind of towards the middle of the apple, so I'm going to press a little bit harder there to set myself up for a darker value. And I'm going to do the same thing above my highlight areas that I'm leaving blank with kind of a medium red. Now in my highlight areas, when I look at the apple, it's not, even though it's light, it's not like straight up white, is it? No. So I'm going to take my red and super lightly, I'm holding the pencil back far towards the end and kind of on its side. I'm just going to add a little bit of red into those highlight sections because the apple is not straight up white. So I'm just going light, and again, I'm not worried about being super neat, but I am trying to make my marks in the shape of the apple. So like curved marks through here, vertical marks where the apple is just like smoother. Now I'm going to go in a little more carefully and see if I need to fix up any of these areas. If I look more carefully at my picture, I can see there's a little bit of a darker value coming through parts of this highlight. So I'm going to kind of add that in, still just with my red colored pencil. And I'm going to look for darker spots throughout where I might want to add more red with a harder pressure or by layering. I'm also going to look for areas where I need to blend better. So for example, on my highlight right here, this section of it actually blends more from dark to light. Do you see how at this part of the apple there's like a medium kind of red? So I'm going to take my red with another just kind of like light pressure layer, and I'm going to try and blend that a little bit from my dark red into the rest of that highlight so it looks more like my picture. So here I'm looking back and forth from my picture to my drawing and trying to make adjustments so it's as close as it can be to what I see. Now we're going to start adding in some other types of colors. The first thing I'm going to grab is a purple kind of color. And on the apple, in these places where the skin has like darker patches, to create that darker value, like I've already pressed hard with my red colored pencil. So instead, I'm going to use my purple colored pencil and layer over that red to make it a little bit deeper. Specifically where I see the darkest values on my apple. So like around the edge and in some of those dark spots of like the skin. And if you look closely at the picture, the skin isn't just like a solid color. It has kind of some patches and things in it. So we want to try to capture that to make it look as accurate as possible. You can also continue to do the squint test like we did yesterday to make sure like you have some light, medium, and dark values going on. If you feel like any of these areas became a little bit too purple, you can take your red colored pencil and go back over them with red to give it more of a red kind of hue. Or you could take your brown colored pencil to make it a little bit more like neutral and a little bit darker. Or you can do both. When I look at the color of the apple in the picture, it's not the same red as like the red of my colored pencil. The red of my colored pencil is more of like a cool toned kind of like, I don't know, cherry red. And the red on the apple is a little warmer. So to adjust the shade of my red on the apple, I can use colors like brown and orange and layer to create a warmer red. So I'm going to take my brown just with light pressure, and I'm going to use that to tone down the red a little bit and make it less like cherry bright red. And I'm just using a light pressure, using that colored pencil on its side. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my orange to like warm it up a little bit. And you should hopefully see that the color of your apple gets a little bit closer to the color in the picture. I'm also going to look for some areas where the skin just has more like orangey patches to it. And maybe I'll press a little harder with my orange there. If I feel like I took it too far, I can always go back in with my red and make it more red again. No big deal. Now I'm going to use a pink because if I look at this highlight area of my apple, it's kind of pink in there. Like it's not just light red. There's like some more pinkyish kind of tones. So I'm going to use a pink And with like a light medium pressure, I'm going to kind of go over my highlight, just kind of over the whole thing to change the tone of it a little bit. And I'm not sure how well that shows up on the screen for you, but trust me that it's happening. And then I'm going to use more of a hard pressure with the pink colored pencil to get some of those like patches into my highlight part, to give it kind of the same texture of that skin of the apple that the rest of my apple has. And what I hope that you notice as you're doing this is that even things that seem like a solid color, like apples are red, right? But even things that seem like they're just red are actually a lot of different colors all combined together. And that's because of like the way the light hits it, or a shadow that's cast on it from another object, or the texture of it. And if I'm using my pink and I feel like it gets a little bit too pinky pink, what do you think I could do over top of it? Yeah, I could use more red to kind of even it back out. But I'd probably want to do that with kind of a light pressure, so I don't fully get rid of the pink. I can also use pink in any other part of the apple that I feel like it would be a good thing to layer on top. And I'm going to use it in my other highlights as well, thinking about the direction that I'm moving my colored pencil. Now, even though I left my highlight really light at first, now I'm going to try and look at it and bring it to the level that it is in the picture. So like my highlight is still too light, especially towards the middle of the apple. So I'm going to take my red and kind of layer that in to make it look more like my original picture. But it still is very much a highlight because we saved it at the beginning and kept it lighter to start with. And I'm going to kind of start to be more brave now about where I'm using like heavy pressure and pushing hard, where I think that the color needs to be stronger. So for example, I'm taking my red along the side here and I feel like I need to push harder to get a stronger color in some of these areas. So I'm not going to be afraid to do that now that I've kind of built up some value. The next color that we're going to use is yellow. And we're going to use it in some specific areas. When we look at the picture, we can see there's yellow through kind of like this highlight area. And there are also some kind of like specks of yellow. So I'm going to start with like kind of a medium to heavy pressure because yellow's not a very strong color. And I'm going to layer yellow over especially this area, and it's going to really brighten it up. I'm also going to put some yellow inside, like where the stem is, because it looks kind of like a warmer color in there. And layering yellow makes like a big impact, especially if you use a heavy pressure. It really brightens it up. I'm also now going to look for some of these little dots on the skin. Can you see it in the picture? Kind of, there are like little specks of yellow. So I'm going to put some little kind of like yellow marks throughout to sort of give a similar kind of look. So just some yellow spots throughout my highlight. And then I'm going to do the same thing with a few darker spots. Where I have any darker spots that I don't feel like I've put in yet, I'm going to add that in with my brown or my purple. This is like the finishing touches. So you want to spend a lot of time looking at your picture and deciding where you need any brighter or darker areas and use either your yellow or one of your darker colors to kind of make that happen. And if you go too yellow or if you go too dark and weird, you can always just go back over it with some red to blend it into the rest of your apple. I'm going to use some orange too to kind of warm up certain areas again that I think need it. And you're going to continue on with reaching for different colors, trying to add in as many of the highlight or dark spots and colors as you can see in your picture. And when you get to a point that you're happy with how it looks, then you're done. Awesome.
Thanks for following along. Take your time to make it look the way that you want it to look, and thanks for your work.